I was sleeping in my car outside the house I built with my own hands when the envelope appeared on my windshield. No postmark, no return address, just a train ticket to a station I had never heard of. And 5 words that made my blood run cold. He waited for you. My name is Michael Carter. I am 47 years old. And 3 months ago I lost everything to the 2 people I trusted most. The envelope was yellowed at the edges like it had been waiting years to find me. I remember my hands shaking as I picked it up, the October rain drumming against my Toyota Camry's roof. For 12 weeks, I had been parking in the same spot every night right across from 317 Oak Ridge Avenue, watching Travis Nolan live in my house, sleep in my bed, and tuck my children in at night. That envelope changed everything. But to understand why you need to know how a small-town veterinarian ended up homeless, broken, and desperate enough to follow a mysterious train ticket into the unknown. My wife Laura and I had been married for 16 years. She was beautiful in that understated way that makes you look twice. Auburn hair she would twist up with a pencil while doing paperwork. Green eyes that crinkled when she laughed at my terrible jokes. We met when she brought an injured stray cat to my clinic. She stayed 3 hours to make sure it survived surgery. Most people would have just dropped it off, I told her. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "I am not most people, Dr. Carter." I was done for right then and there. Travis Nolan entered our lives like carbon monoxide, invisible, odorless, and deadly. Laura introduced him as our new handyman last spring. 6 foot 4 inches of muscle and tattoos with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Michael, honey, this is Travis." Laura said that first day, her hand resting on his forearm a second too long. "He is going to fix that leak in the basement you have been too busy to handle." I should have paid attention to the way my son Ethan stepped behind me when Travis walked in. Kids and animals have the same instinct about dangerous people. My daughter Lily, usually chatty with everyone, went silent. Even Duke, our golden retriever who loved everybody, growled low in his throat. Friendly dog Travis said, but his tone suggested Duke better learn to be friendlier fast. The truth is I had been losing Laura for years. I just refused to see it. 70-hour weeks at the clinic, emergency calls at midnight, missing school plays and soccer games. I told myself I was building something for our family. "Your patients get the best of you," Laura said one night standing in our bedroom doorway. "We get whatever is left." I promised to do better, to hire another vet to take that vacation we had been planning since Lily was born. But promises are just words when actions do not follow. 3 months before that envelope appeared, I came home from a veterinary conference in Denver to find Travis's truck in my driveway at 11 p.m. "He is fixing the garbage disposal," Laura explained, not meeting my eyes. The disposal that worked perfectly fine when I tested it 10 minutes later. That should have been my first real warning. The second was finding Travis cigarettes in my nightstand drawer. The third was Laura suddenly needing book club meetings 4 nights a week. But I was Michael Carter, respected veterinarian Rotary Club member, the guy who coached Little League for 5 years straight. Men like me did not have wives who cheated. Men like me did not get replaced by unemployed bouncers who bench-pressed more than I could deadlift. So I buried myself deeper in work, told myself the distance between Laura and me was temporary stress, told myself Travis was just overly helpful to a fault. My father, Robert, disappeared when I was 15, left for work one morning and never came home. The police found his car at the bus station, his wallet still inside. The only explanation was a note on our kitchen table. "I am sorry. This is the only way to keep you safe." My mother never recovered. She died 5 years later, they said from heart disease, but I knew better. She died from abandonment. I swore I would never do that to my family, that I would fight for them no matter what. Funny how life makes liars of us all. The morning everything exploded, I had been throwing up since 4:00 a.m. Bad seafood from a medical sales dinner the night before. My veterinary assistant, Samantha, took one look at me and ordered me home. "Dr. Carter, you are green. Go home before you infect everyone." It was 11:30 on a Thursday morning in July. The sun was blazing, the humidity suffocating. I remember thinking our central air would feel like heaven. I walked into my house through the garage door the same way I always did. Duke did not come running to greet me, which should have been my warning. The house was quiet except for sounds from upstairs. Not quiet exactly. There was music playing, something slow and sultry that Laura never listened to when I was home. Each step up our oak staircase felt like walking towards something I could not come back from. My hand touched the bedroom doorknob, the same doorknob I had turned thousands of times over 15 years. Travis was in my bed, wearing my robe, the expensive one Laura bought me for Christmas, that I never wore because it felt too fancy for a man like me. He was drinking coffee from my world's best dad mug, the one Ethan made in third-grade art class. He looked up at me like I was a door-to-door salesman interrupting his morning. "You are home early?" he said, not even attempting to cover himself or show shame. My life before Travis Nolan was everything a small-town American dream should be. I ran Carter Veterinary Clinic on Elm Street right between Miller's Hardware and the bakery that made those cinnamon rolls that brought people from 3 counties over. Every morning I would wake up at 5:30, make coffee in the kitchen I had renovated with my own hands, and watch the sunrise paint our backyard gold. Laura would come down around 6:15, her hair messy from sleep, wearing one of my old college sweatshirts. She would steal sips of my coffee, even though hers was brewing. A routine we had perfected over 16 years of marriage. "Michael, you are going to be late," she would say, even though I never was. I would kiss her forehead, grab my lunch that she still packed for me every day, and head to the clinic. It was predictable, comfortable, and exactly the life I had worked 60-hour weeks to build. I met Laura at a charity event for the county animal shelter in 2008. I was there providing free vaccinations. She was volunteering at the registration table. A woman brought in a massive aggressive German shepherd that lunged at everyone who passed. People scattered, but Laura walked right up to that dog, sat on the floor, and just waited. 20 minutes later, that beast had his head in her lap while she stroked his ears. "How did you do that?" I asked her. "Patience," she said, looking up at me with those green eyes. "Everything worthwhile requires patience." We were married 14 months later in her parents' backyard. Her father, Henry, a retired mail carrier, pulled me aside during the reception. "Laura needs stability, Michael. She did not have much growing up. Promise me you will give her that." I shook his hand and promised. Henry died 2 years later from a heart attack, never knowing his daughter would become the kind of person who brings another man into her husband's bed. Our twins, Ethan and Lily, were born during a February blizzard in 2013. I nearly crashed the car twice, getting Laura to the hospital. Ethan came first, quiet and observant even then. Lily followed 12 minutes later, screaming like she was angry about being second. 2 for the price of 1, Laura laughed through exhausted tears. "Michael, we are parents." The weight of those words hit me like a beautiful truck. Everything I did from that moment forward would be for them. The veterinary practice grew faster than I expected. What started as me and 1 technician became a staff of 8, treating everything from hamsters to horses. I specialized in large animal medicine, driving out to farms at all hours when a cow had trouble calving or a horse colicked. The money was good, better than good. We bought the Colonial on Oak Ridge Avenue when the twins were 3, a fixer-upper that everyone said I was crazy to take on. "This house has good bones," I told Laura as we walked through rooms with peeling wallpaper and creaking floors. "We will make it ours." And we did. Every weekend for 3 years I restored that house. I stripped wood-laid tile, rebuilt the wraparound porch board by board. Laura painted the nurseries, planted gardens, turned that broken house into something from a magazine. Neighbors would slow down when they drove by, watching our progress. The Carter place, they would call it. "Did you see what Michael did with the front columns? But success has a price, and mine was time. Emergency calls did not care about dance recitals. Sick animals did not wait for family dinners. "Daddy is saving puppies," Laura would tell the twins when I missed another bedtime story. At first she said it with pride, later with resignation, finally with something that sounded like contempt. The changes in Laura were gradual, like watching someone lose weight. You do not notice day to day until suddenly their clothes do not fit. She joined a gym, started wearing makeup to grocery shop, bought clothes that seemed designed for someone else's approval. "I am 44. "Michael," she said when I commented on a particularly short dress, "I will not be attractive forever." "You are beautiful," I told her, meaning it. "You have not really looked at me in years," she replied. And maybe she was right. Travis appeared like he was answering a casting call for everything I was not. Where I was soft around the middle from too many rushed dinners, he had abs you could see through his t-shirt. Where I spoke quietly, measured from years of calming frightened animals, he commanded rooms with his volume alone. Where I fixed animals, he fixed houses, cars, motorcycles, anything mechanical that I had never learned because I was too busy memorizing veterinary medicine textbooks. "Your husband works hard," Travis told Laura one day while I was within earshot fixing our deck. "It must be tough being married to a saint," Laura laughed. But it was not a kind sound. "Saints do not make good husbands, Travis. They are too busy saving the world." I should have confronted her. Then should have asked what she meant. Fought for my marriage, been present instead of just providing. But I had a surgery scheduled, a young girl's cat that needed a tumor removed, and I told myself we would talk later. There is always a later, until there is not. That Thursday in July started like food poisoning, but ended with my entire life detonating. I stood in my bedroom doorway, staring at Travis Nolan in my bed, wearing my robe, drinking from my world's best dad mug. The ceiling fan I had installed last summer spun lazy circles above him. The sheets Laura and I had picked out for our anniversary covered his legs. Everything in that room belonged to me, except the man occupying it. "You need to leave," I said, my voice surprisingly steady for someone whose world was crumbling. "Get dressed and get out of my house." Travis sat down the coffee mug on my nightstand right next to the picture of our family at Disney World. "Your house?" He laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. "Laura says you barely live here anymore. Says you spend more nights at the clinic than in this bed." "Where is she?" I asked, though part of me already knew she was letting this happen, that this was not some secret affair I had discovered. "Getting her nails done," Travis said, stretching like a cat. "Should be back soon. We were planning lunch at that new Italian place downtown. You know, the one you have been promising to take her to for 6 months. The casualness of it, the complete lack of shame or fear, that is what snapped something inside me. I stepped into my own bedroom and grabbed his clothes from the chair. "Get dressed and leave, or I am calling the police." Travis stood up, then all 6'4" of him, my robe falling open. "Michael, buddy, you are not understanding the situation here. This is not your room anymore. Has not been for months. You just did not know it. The deed to this house is in my name," I said, my fists clenching around his jeans. "I rebuilt every inch of this place. While your wife was alone," Travis stepped closer. "While your kids wondered why Daddy loved sick dogs more than them, you built a house, Michael. But Laura made it a home, and now she has made it mine." I threw his clothes at his chest. "Get out before I do something we will both regret." That is when I heard the garage door opening. Laura's Suburban pulling in. Travis smiled like he had won the lottery. "Perfect timing. Let us ask the lady of the house what she wants." Laura walked up the stairs slowly, her heels clicking on each step like a countdown. She appeared in the doorway wearing a sundress I had never seen before, her hair freshly styled, looking beautiful and cold as January ice. "Michael Carter." she said, not even surprised to see me. "You are home early. Laura Carter, what is this?" I gestured at Travis Nolan, still standing there in my robe. "What are you doing?" She walked past me like I was furniture, sat on the bed, and looked up at me with those green eyes that used to see me as a hero. "I am living my life, Michael Carter, something I should have done years ago." "We have children," I said. "We have a marriage. 16 years, Laura Carter." "16 years of being your afterthought," she replied. 16 years of explaining to the kids why Daddy missed another recital. 16 years of sleeping alone while you saved every animal in the county except the woman dying of loneliness in your own bed. "So you bring him here into our home. Into our bed, my home," Laura Carter corrected. "My bed? You just paid for it." That is when we heard the front door slam. Ethan Carter and Lily Carter were home from school. I could hear their backpacks hitting the floor. Duke's nails scrambling on hardwood as he greeted them. "Mom," Lily Carter called up, "whose truck is in Dad's parking spot? Do not you dare." I said to Laura Carter, "Whatever this is, we handle it without them knowing." Travis Nolan laughed again. "They already know, Michael Carter. Who do you think makes them breakfast when you leave before dawn, who helps with homework while you are at the clinic until midnight?" The sound of footsteps on the stairs. My children coming up to find their father facing off with their mother's boyfriend. Both of us radiating the kind of anger that changes the temperature in a room. "Dad!" Ethan Carter appeared first, his face shifting from surprise to understanding to fear in 3 seconds. "What is happening?" "Your father was just leaving," Laura Carter said. "No," I said, stepping forward. "This is my house. He leaves." That is when Travis Nolan hit me. No warning, no wind-up, just his fist connecting with my ribs like a sledgehammer. I doubled over gasping and he grabbed my collar, dragging me toward the stairs. Lily Carter started screaming. Ethan Carter tried to grab Travis Nolan's arm, yelling, "Stop! Stop hurting him!" Travis Nolan threw me down our staircase, the same stairs where I had carried the twins up for bedtime 1,000 times. I hit the landing hard. Felt something crack in my shoulder, tasted blood in my mouth. Through the pain, I could hear my children crying, Laura Carter telling them Daddy had fallen, that everything was fine. Travis Nolan stood at the top of the stairs, massive and triumphant. "You come back here again without permission. It will be worse. This is my family now. Michael Carter, you are just a paycheck." I looked up at my children's faces and saw them being held back by Laura Carter. Daddy Lily Carter sobbed, reaching for me. "It is okay, baby," I managed to say, pulling myself up. "Daddy is okay." But nothing would ever be okay again. The divorce proceedings were a masterclass in premeditated destruction. Laura Carter's lawyer, a shark named Caroline Reed from the city, presented a case that painted me as an absentee father who prioritized his practice over his family. She had documentation going back 2 years, missed school events, canceled vacations nights, when I did not come home at all because I was monitoring critical patients. Every emergency call I had taken, every surgery that ran late became evidence of abandonment. Dr. Michael Carter earned $340,000 last year. Reed told the judge, a stern woman named Margaret Sloan, who seemed to have decided against me before I even sat down. Yet his children barely know him. His wife has been functionally a single mother while he built his veterinary empire. My lawyer, David Hunt, whom I had known since high school, and probably should have hired someone better, tried to argue that I was providing for my family. "Your Honor, Doctor, Carter worked those hours to give his children the best life possible. The house, the college funds, the stability that comes from financial security." Laura's lawyer presented years of records and manipulated witness statements claiming I had violent tendencies. Judge Sloan looked at me over her glasses. "Money does not raise children, Dr. Carter. Parents do." The assault charges I tried to file against Travis Nolan went nowhere. He claimed I attacked him first, that he was defending himself and Laura Carter. The police report noted my injuries as consistent with a fall downstairs. No witnesses except my traumatized children whom Laura Carter would not allow to testify. "We will not put them through that," her lawyer said, as if she cared about their trauma after letting them watch Travis Nolan throw me down our stairs. In the end, I lost everything. The house I had restored with my bare hands, the practice I had built from nothing. Joint custody became supervised visits every other weekend. Even Duke, my loyal golden retriever who had been my companion through vet school, was awarded to Laura Carter because the children needed stability, and the dog was part of that stability. The financial settlement was crushing $9.2 million, representing the value of my practice, our assets, and future earnings. I was ordered to pay $13,000 monthly in child support and $9,000 in alimony. After taxes and legal fees, I had enough money to buy a used 2009 Toyota Camry and put down the first month's rent on an apartment. Except no landlord would rent to a man with an ongoing domestic situation and a questionable assault history. My accounts were frozen pending the civil appeal, and every background check flagged me as high risk. So I lived in my car, a 2009 Toyota Camry with 180,000 miles and a broken air conditioner parked across from the house I used to own. Every night I watched Travis Nolan's silhouette moving through rooms I had painted, watched him tuck my children into beds I had assembled, watched him let Duke out into the yard where I had built a swing set that now sat unused because Travis did not push kids on swings. 3 months passed like this. Showering at the gym, eating from gas stations, working locum shifts at emergency veterinary clinics 2 towns over where nobody knew my story. My supervised visits with Ethan and Lily Carter were agony. 2 hours every other Saturday at a community center with a social worker taking notes on every interaction. "Dad, why cannot you come home?" Lily Carter asked during one visit, her voice small. "It is complicated, sweetheart. Travis says you chose work over us," Ethan Carter said, not meeting my eyes. "He says real fathers do not abandon their families. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that sometimes the villain wins? That justice does not always prevail? That the man tucking them in at night is a monster wearing the mask of a father figure?" October arrived with early frost and bitter winds. My car became an icebox at night. I would wear every piece of clothing I owned, curl up in the back seat, and watch my breath fog the windows. Some nights I would see Ethan's face in his bedroom window looking out at the street like he knew I was there. We would stare at each other across 50 yards of darkness, father and son separated by more than distance. It was on such a night, October 15th, around 3:00 a.m., when the envelope appeared. I woke to find it tucked under my windshield wiper, wet from mist, but somehow not soaked through. My hands shook from cold as I opened it. Inside was an old Amtrak ticket, the kind they used before everything went digital. "Silver Pine Station, Wyoming," it read. Dated for October 16th, 8:00 p.m. Departure. The handwritten note was brief. "He waited for you." I sat in my frozen car studying that handwriting by streetlight. Something about the way the H curved the particular slant of the letters triggered a memory so old it felt borrowed from someone else's life. My father, Robert Carter, teaching me to write cursive at our kitchen table. "Make your letters lean forward, Mikey," he had said, like they are eager to get where they are going. My father vanished more than 30 years ago when I was 15. One morning he kissed my mother goodbye, ruffled my hair, and drove to work at the paper mill. He never arrived. His car was found at the bus station, wallet still in the glove compartment, keys in the ignition. The only explanation was a note on our kitchen table. "I am sorry. This is the only way to keep you safe." The police investigated for months. No body, no trail, no explanation. Eventually, they declared him a voluntary missing person, probably dead. My mother never recovered. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped living in every way that mattered. 5 years later, I found her in bed, her heart finally giving up on waiting for a man who would never come home. Now, 3 decades later, someone was claiming he had waited for me. I had 2 choices: stay in this car, in this purgatory of watching another man live my life, or take a train ticket to nowhere, following a ghost of hope that my father might somehow be alive, might somehow have answers, might somehow offer redemption from this hell I was living. I turned the key in the ignition. The Camry coughed to life, and I drove toward the train station, leaving behind the street where I had spent 3 months dying one day at a time. The train to Silver Pine Station took 18 hours through the heart of America's forgotten spine. I watched small towns blur past each one, looking like somewhere people used to live rather than places still inhabited. The ticket was for a sealed compartment paid for by someone who wanted me traveling alone. I spent those hours staring at my reflection in the dark window, trying to recognize the hollow-eyed stranger staring back. Calvin, the elderly conductor who punched my ticket, studied it longer than necessary. "Silver Pine Station," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of knowing something I did not. "There has not been a scheduled stop there in 20 years. Someone pulled serious strings to arrange this. Someone with connections. Do you know who?" He shook his head, but his eyes said otherwise. "Just be ready, son. Sometimes the past comes back for good reason, sometimes for bad. Either way, it comes back changed." Silver Pine Station materialized out of the Wyoming wilderness like something from another century. A wooden platform warped by weather, a single building with paint peeling off in sheets, surrounded by pine forests that seemed to press in from all sides. No town visible, no roads except a dirt track disappearing into the trees. The train did not even fully stop, just slowed enough for me to jump off before accelerating back into the night. The station house had one light burning in a window. The door was unlocked hinges screaming as I pushed it open. Inside smelled like medicine and old wood dust and something else aftershave I recognized from 30 years ago. He was in a wheelchair by the window oxygen tank beside him, watching the spot where the train had left me. Even dying, even withered to half his former size, I knew him instantly. Robert Carter, my father. The way he held his shoulders, the particular angle of his head when thinking, the hands that had taught me to tie fishing flies and throw a curveball. "Hello, Mikey," my father said, turning to face me. His voice was rougher now, scraped thin by illness, but unmistakably his. "I am sorry it took me so long. I could not speak, could not move. 30 years of grief and fury and confusion crashed together in my chest. This man who had abandoned us, who had let Mom die of heartbreak, who had missed every milestone of my life, was sitting here apologizing for being late." "You are angry," Robert Carter said. "You have every right to be. But before you say anything, I need you to know why I left and why I am breaking every rule to see you now." He wheeled himself to a filing cabinet, pulled out a thick folder stamped with government seals. "In 1993, I witnessed something I should not have. 3 officers from our police department executing a man behind the paper mill. Turned out half our town's law enforcement was owned by a crime syndicate running drugs through Indiana. I was supposed to die that night too, but I ran. Made it to the FBI field office in Indianapolis." He opened the folder, showing me newspaper clippings, trial transcripts, photos of men in handcuffs. "They offered me 2 choices: testify and enter witness protection alone, or refuse, and watch them come after you and your mother. There was no option where I got to stay. You could have taken us with you," I said, finding my voice. "No, Mikey." "I could not," he replied. "You were 15, established in school. Your mother was caring for her sick father. Uprooting you both, changing your names, living in fear forever, that was not a life. So I chose to disappear to let you hate me rather than make you live running." He showed me another box, this one filled with photos, hundreds of them. Me at high school graduation, my wedding to Laura Carter, the twins' first birthday, my veterinary school commencement, all taken from a distance through telephoto lenses. "Every moment that mattered, I was there," Robert said. "Hidden, but there. I have been Thomas Carpenter for 30 years, living here in Wyoming, working as a ranch foreman. But I never stopped being your father." "Mom died thinking you abandoned us," I said, anger finally breaking through shock. "I know," he whispered, and for the first time I saw tears in his eyes. I sent her messages through handlers, begging them to tell her I was alive, that I loved her. They said it was too dangerous. She died not knowing, and that is something I will answer for soon enough. He gestured to his oxygen tank. "Lung cancer," he said quietly. 3 weeks, maybe 4. That is why you are here now. But there is more, Mikey. The reason I risked everything to bring you here." Robert Carter wheeled to a desk and pulled out a laptop that looked absurdly modern in this decaying station. "I have been watching you too. Not just milestones. Everything, including what that woman and her boyfriend did to you." He turned the screen toward me. Financial records, text messages, emails dating back 2 years. Laura Carter started planning your destruction the day she met Travis Nolan. He is not just some bouncer Mikey. He is a professional con artist. Real name is Ryan DeLuca, wanted in 3 states for elderly abuse fraud identity theft. He targets lonely wives of successful men, helps them destroy their husbands, then disappears with everything. My legs gave out. I sank into a moth-eaten chair. "How do you know this?" "Because I still have friends in certain agencies. Friends who owe me for testimonies that put dangerous people away. I have been building a case, Mikey. As of 6 hours ago, federal marshals have warrants for both of them, fraud, conspiracy, assault. Your children are being placed in emergency custody until you can claim them." He pulled out another document. "One more thing. Thomas Carpenter was a successful man. Careful investments, patents on ranch equipment, innovations, 30 years of compound interest. He had patented some of his ranch machinery designs and invested through government channels under witness protection. There is a trust in your name worth $11 million. I could not be your father when you needed me, but I can make sure you and my grandchildren never suffer again. Dad." I started, but he held up his hand. "I do not want forgiveness, Mikey. I want you to know that every choice I made, right or wrong, was to protect you. I want you to rebuild your life, raise your children, and know that sometimes love looks like leaving." I spent 2 weeks with my father in that abandoned station house he had converted into a makeshift home. Every day we talked from sunrise to sunset, filling 30 years of silence with words that should have been spread across decades of ordinary conversations. He told me about the nightmares that followed his testimony about Christmas mornings spent alone staring at photos of the family he had protected by leaving. I told him about Mom's final day, shows she called his name at the end, still believing he would walk through the door. "I wrote her letters every week for 5 years. Robert said one evening, watching the Wyoming sun disappear behind the mountains. "Never sent them, but I wrote them. They are in that box by the door. Maybe someday you can burn them for me. Let the smoke find her." His predictions about Travis Nolan and Laura Carter were precisely accurate. Federal marshals arrested them at my former house. Travis trying to escape through the same back door I had installed 3 summers ago. Ryan DeLuca, his real name, had 14 previous victims across the country, women he had helped destroy their husbands before draining their accounts and disappearing. Laura Carter was victim number 15, though she did not know it yet. He had already transferred $400,000 of our money to offshore accounts she could not access. The arrest happened during dinner. Ethan Carter called me from a social worker's phone, his voice shaking. "Dad, They took Mom and Travis away in handcuffs. Travis tried to run, but they caught him in the backyard. He fell into the koi pond I had built. There was poetic justice in that image. Travis face down in the water, the feature I had spent 3 weekends perfecting, while Laura complained I was wasting time on fish instead of family. Robert Carter died on a Tuesday morning, October 30th, exactly 2 weeks after I had arrived. We were sitting on the station platform sharing coffee from a thermos, watching the sun climb over endless pines. He was telling me about the time he had watched from a parking garage as I performed emergency surgery on a dog hit by a car, saving it on a sidewalk with just my emergency kit. "That is when I knew you had become the man I hoped you would be," he said. Then his hand found mine, squeezed once, and he was gone. Peaceful, like he had been holding his breath for 3 decades and could finally exhale. I buried him in a cemetery in Casper under his real name. The headstone reads, "Robert Carter, Father Protector." He never really left. The legal proceedings that followed were swift. Because Ryan DeLuca's crimes were already under federal investigation, my case was processed unusually fast. With Travis Nolan exposed as a career criminal and Laura Carter as his accomplice, the original divorce verdict was overturned. The house I had restored returned to me, though I sold it immediately. Too many ghosts in those walls. Too many mornings waking up to Travis' shadow in my bedroom doorway. I was awarded full custody of Ethan and Lily Carter. The day I picked them up from foster care Duke was with me skinny and scared from Travis' neglect, but tail wagging like his world had been restored. Dad Lily said, running into my arms, "We knew you would come back. We knew the truth would come out." How I asked, holding both my children like I might never let go. "Because you are Dad," Ethan said simply. "You fix things even when they seem impossible to fix." With Robert Carter's money and the settlement from the overturned divorce, I started over in Wyoming, not far from where my father had spent his hidden years. I opened a new veterinary practice in a small town that needed a quiet place where I know every client's name and never miss my kids' school events. The clinic closes at 5:00 p.m. sharp. No exceptions. Emergencies are referred to the 24-hour hospital 2 towns over. I learned that being a good veterinarian does not require sacrificing being a good father. Laura Carter is serving 4 years for fraud and conspiracy. She writes letters I do not read, calls the kids on a schedule the court mandates. Travis Nolan got 18 years of federal time, though he will probably serve 12. His previous victims testified at the sentencing, 14 women whose lives he had shattered for profit. Laura sat in that courtroom, learning she was just another mark, that every sweet word he had whispered was scripted, that she had destroyed her family for a con man who had already forgotten her name. The old Silver Pine station has been restored as a memorial library. I used part of Robert's money to rebuild it, to create something permanent from our brief reunion. There is a plaque by the door. Sometimes love requires distance. Sometimes protection looks like abandonment. Sometimes the people we think have forgotten us are actually holding us up from shadows we never knew existed. Every Sunday, I take Ethan and Lily Carter to visit Robert's grave. We tell him about our week, about school and friends and Duke's latest mischief. Lily leaves drawings she has made, pictures of a grandfather she only knew for 2 weeks, but loves like she had known him forever. Ethan plays his guitar songs he is learning in music class, the one activity I never miss. That envelope with no return address sits framed in my office next to a photo of Robert and me from those final 2 weeks. Patients sometimes ask about it, this yellowed envelope in an expensive frame. I tell them it is a reminder that salvation can come from the most unexpected places. That sometimes the people we think abandoned us are actually fighting battles we cannot see. That love does not always look like presence. My father waited 30 years to save me. He gave up everything, his name, his family, his life, to keep us safe from shadows we never knew existed. Was it the right choice? I do not know. But I know that when I needed him most, when my life had collapsed to nothing, he appeared with perfect timing, like he had been watching all along, waiting for the moment I would need a father more than I would need answers. Some nights, when the Wyoming wind rattles the windows and Duke is snoring at my feet, I think about the train ticket that brought me here. How did Robert Carter know I would be sleeping in my car that exact night? How did he know I would be desperate enough to follow a cryptic note to an abandoned station? Then I remember he had been watching for 30 years. He knew because fathers know even from impossible distances, even through decades of silence when their children need them. The last thing Robert said before he died was, "Love does not end, Mikey. It just changes shape." He was right. His love shaped itself into absence to keep us safe, into money to secure our future, into 2 final weeks to explain a lifetime of distance. And now it shapes itself through me, in the way I love Ethan and Lily, in the presence I give them that I could not give before, in the promise that I will never choose anything over them again. The man who lost everything to his wife's boyfriend in a corrupt system found redemption in an abandoned train station with a father he thought was dead. It sounds like fiction, like something too convenient to be real. But sometimes life writes better stories than we could imagine, stories where the third act reveals the first act was never what it seemed, where abandonment was actually protection, where loss becomes the doorway to everything we actually needed. If you have made it this far in my story, you know that life can shatter us in ways we never see coming, but it can also restore us through people we never expected. Sometimes, even in our darkest moments, someone is watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to pull us back into the light.